You want to make money on MMA? LaTB. You want to know who to put it in your parlay? LaTB. You want to know our DraftKings stay away? LaTB. So, who has the Leslie Smith underdog pick? Who was the Mexican dude and the lesbian chick? Everybody say you mean Lesbo and The Bean. Who's that out there living they dream? Lesbo and The Bean. Who's that still smoking all the green? Lesbo and The Bean. Come on y'all, let me hear you scream. Lesbo and The Bean. You wanna make money on MMA? LaTB. You wanna know who to put in your parlay? LaTB. You wanna know what DraftKings stay awake? LaTB. So who has the Leslie Smith underdog pick? Who is the Mexican dude and the lesbian chick? Everybody say you mean Lesbo and The Bean. Who's that out there living the dream? Lesbo and The Bean. Who's that still smoking all the green? Lesbo and The Bean. Come on y'all, let me hear you scream. Lesbo and The Bean.
Well, I guess we're going to talk about UFC Fight Night Finale 25. This is
a weird way to start a bonus episode.
Yeah, it's been a trying week, and this fight card has been trying to get put together and barely hanging on by a thread. There has been a fighter that ended up falling out due to illness, more than likely weight cut issues. So Roxanne Modafferi, the loser of her last fight, is now going to go for the championship, and this woman is now going to be crowned the champ, regardless of who wins or loses. But either way, that's just kind of what's happening. I don't know much about the show this season. I know Alvarez and Gaethje were headlining the coaches there, but guess what? I don't care about Eddie Alvarez and Justin Gaethje. Their lives. I'm sorry, I love their styles individually, but they're not people that I want to know everything about. They're not another one that does not need to be named at this point.
And for anyone who's listening to this podcast, the one that doesn't need to be named, we did a whole little special blurb on the one that doesn't need to be named. So if you don't know what we're talking about, look it up. I don't even know. Maybe that's more interesting than talking about this fight card. I'm trying to look back through it, and this is so horrible. I don't even want to make my picks. I feel like I don't pick Invicta fights.
This is Invicta level fights for you because it's all women coming from Lesbo.
Yeah, I wasn't impressed. I wasn't impressed with I'm interested in the division. But there's already fighters in the UFC that are the best women in the world who I'm interested at fighting in the division. Jessica Ai could be every single woman in this lineup, and I believe, and she's the least I can think of in my head of women that's willing to fight at 125.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that there is some contenders and there is some real talent in here, but it isn't the best amount of talent we've ever seen out of a tough season.
Who beats Shevchenko?
Maybe not right off of the show, but I did like Fabiana wasn't bad. And this is only because I listened to other podcasts that would break down the show that I even know a smidgen of whatever, because I never watched an episode. I watch highlights on Twitter, and there wasn't many highlights to watch. It was Decision City all day long, all season long. There was, a couple of standouts that I can't even remember their freaking names right now. It's just such a depressing card. And
they should have mixed this up.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have made such a big fat part of the card
but
the house. Because the men cards, when there's different houses, the whole entire fight card isn't of just the men in the house. They mix it up with other fights going on.
Right.
This one only has the one other fight.
Right.
Which I feel sexist. I'm interested in that fight, but only because I'm interested in Sugar Sean O'Malley.
I agree. That is one of the most interesting fights on the entire card is a debuting fighter against not a tougher guy coming off of a loss.
And it's not that I'm not interested in these women, but
what I think really devalues this entire card is that this is an immediate injection of the 125 women's division of a whole bunch of contenders already coming in. So it gives them already their rankings globally in the UFC as soon as they come out of this. But what really devalues this entire card is that we know they're all getting contracts. Some of the allure of the UFC is, does this guy keep his contract? Does he stay fighting in here? Does he do it or not? And
I agree.
They don't have that. We know every single one of these ladies is getting 2 more fights in the UFC, guaranteed.
And it's going to be against. They should have slowed in this as a division, 1 fight at a time. We just saw a 125 card in Shanghai.
Right.
They should have moved in the division like that, taking cream of the crop fighters, and then maybe a year or 2 years after opening the division, you do this. You're not looking for somebody to fight somebody.
Right.
And you can't, it's so silly if you crown a champion out of this house with the belt, and the very first person they fight, they're going to lose it to, in my opinion. Unless it's somebody that's
off of the show as well.
But they already beat all them.
It puts them in a really interesting dilemma.
The bullet beats everyone in the house as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And then Jessica I, she's one of my least favorite 135ers, actually puts a good run against everyone in this household. PVZ puts a good run against everyone in this household.
Uh-huh.
Joanna beats everyone in this household.
Agreed with all that. I wouldn't disagree a bit, but those are still the top levels of that women's division right now.
Jessica beats everyone in the house.
Right. Would you say
But there's no monsters in this.
Yeah, there's nobody nobody's going to contest that belt to Shevchenko right now.
Well, but that's I guess...
And that's why it's also devalued because they're giving them...
right here.
Right.
The 115 house of women... But I was so interested in it. The fights were a little more interesting, I guess. Or maybe the personalities were a little more interesting in the 115 house. But the 115 house was some natural 125 fighters that cut the extra weight to get into the house. So it was this cream of the crop. But, so Carla Esparza comes out of that as the champion, meets Joanna. We don't even know who she is at all. Mercs her. I mean, not that we collectively as a whole, but like just the average schmo fan.
Right.
Doesn't know who she is at all, just gets murked. Just murks Claudia. So maybe it's kind of a similar deal, I guess. I'm being a hater.
I am too a little bit, and I'm sorry, guys, that we should be more professional in our UFC broadness, but it has been heavy-duty weeks of work, UFC, no breaks, and this is just shoved in our face at the last second, not knowing about it for a week or two to really figure it out. I know we could have watched the season.
Did you make picks on this?
I have made picks, but I'm not confident enough with a lot of the fights to make true picks. Okay, what about
this? This is what I think we should do. Do a breakdown of it. We owe the fighters a respect of it because there's some other fight cards on this. There's Jane's.
Agreed.
There is some other, and the women who have busted their ass to get here.
Agreed.
And we should do it, but I can't do our normal. We have to do like you got to do the quick
shot.
version.
We
do 3-2. Not
dating.
Who they lost or beat, or not who they
speed fight.
Yes, speed, and we'll still make our picks. From the bottom up.
All right, from the bottom up, we're going to have Jillian Roberts versus Emily Whitmire. I have Whitmire decision because they're both 3-2 fighters in the 125 division. I don't give a shit. What do you think?
Did you see him fight anyone?
Nope.
Or any of that? You're just going purely... Okay, so you have Whitmire, and she's out of Oregon. She's the best 112 pound for pound of Nevada. Women's U.S. Southeast. I'm going to go with the Florida girl.
She's out of Hillsboro, Oregon.
Yeah.
I'm fond of their places. I know what they do out there. A lot of crystal meth. So she must be a good fighter.
Well, I'm going to go with the Floridian
the local
Robertson
Oregonian
decision.
Alright. I thought we were going to shoot this thing in the face. I thought we were going to boom, boom, boom. Alright, moving on to the next fight. We have Ariel Beck at flyweight versus Shauna Dodson. I like Dodson decision. She tends to stay striking, but doesn't have the best takedown defense. Her gas tank is also not that good. Beck loses split decision. She can stay in a fight, but fundamentally, she's getting stronger. At 27 years old, she's still brand new in the fight game. I think they both are. So either one of them can have a bad night, and it's a really bad night, and either one of them can have a good night and look like a world beater now that they're getting an infusion. And I think that's really going to go on with a lot of these women is we're going to see them grow all dramatically after they realize what the lights are like. They're all going to be able to start a train
Dodson's personality, so I'm going to go with Dodson decision.
I'm going Dodson decision as well. Moving on to the next fight, right?
Yeah.
We have Rachel Osvik versus Karine Gavayan. And these are another 3-2. All I know is about Osvik is that she's coming in from the current champions camp. She's a Hawaiian lady who is gonna have some sort of modeling contract after this. She is a gorgeous woman who actually has good fundamental skills.
You heard it here first. That's the prediction. She's gonna get a modeling contract. Moving on.
That is coming on after.
Just kidding. That is so shitty if I were to say that. That's where we leave our prediction of that fight and we just move right on.
But I've seen her roll, and she has some really sneaky grappling. I caught some of her Twitter. I ended up following her on Twitter just because I wanted to support her, because I'd like to shake her hand. And we have...
And by hand, I mean her vagina. No.
I mean her clam.
I want to shake her clam. I mean hand.
So...
Oh my God! Just going off the rails.
Big decision. I couldn't tell you other than Karine was in the house as well. And who do you got in this fight?
I'm actually going with the other girl because she looks like she is straight off the Jersey Shore. Submission round 3.
All right. Moving on to the next fight, we have a middleweight bout.
Wait, what's the other? Hold on. Princess. Garvorgian,
the princess. Ooh, yep, she's Armenian? That changes the game.
And you know what else? So the Kardashians are Armenian.
Oh, shit. She's got Kanye ties. Oh, shit. All right, talk about that. So moving on to the next fight, though, at middleweight, maybe a little something we're more familiar with. We have Andrew Sanchez versus Ryan James.
And you know what? This is the other thing I have to say right now. If it wasn't UFC 218 this week, I would have studied the shit out of this card. I would have known everything about these fighters. It's not their fault. It's bad timing. And as we know with the UFC, and especially with the UFC fame meter and where all that it goes, timing's everything. Timing is everything. If John Jones and Ronda Rousey happened to come out at the same time as Conor McGregor in that era, would anyone have noticed them the same way?
If you're the Joey Benavidez of Dominic Johnson, Demetrius Johnson, you would have been the champ any other fucking time. Not now.
Yeah, you don't get any of the any of the guys in the division, or look at the Jose Aldo era of the 145, and so
So
I'm sorry, I just want to apologize for calling Garganjian or whatever that girl and not taking this seriously, and it's just bad timing. Hashtag bad timing. But we can still do the fast version.
So we have Ryan James versus Andrew Sanchez at middleweight. Sanchez is coming off of a loss 7 months ago to Anthony Smith, TKO head kick. Prior to that, he had a win to Trevor Smith. Before that, he beat Khalil Roundtree in a decision, and he was the winner of the Ultimate Fighter season, whatever, as well. He's coming in against Ryan James, who's coming off of a 2-fight losing streak in the UFC. Both those losses coming to Mershart, who's later on the card, via armbar submission, and then to Jack Marshman via decision 4 months ago. Ryan James has a 9-3 record to the 9-3 Sanchez. All the way around, the Missouri wrestler is younger, shorter at 6'1" to 6'3" for James. He's 29 to James is 36, and the reach advantage goes to James by half an inch at 76.5. So James is not that fundamentally sound wrestling, doesn't have much power, has somewhat plodding forward movement when he strikes. I believe his ground game is his best attribute, but when it's been tested at the UFC level, it has failed already with Mershart, and he's just older in his age. He came into it a little bit older in his career, and it's really showing, and this is just a setup fight to get Sanchez going off of that head kick that Smith landed. It was just a blitz. It works on anyone. Anyone's chin's going to be tested, and Sanchez was a heavy favorite. Smith came through big time on that fight. I don't think we have to worry about Sanchez being chinny because people have been saying that. I think James doesn't have that kind of power or movement to do that. This is going to turn into a straight grind wrestling fest, if not submission. Round 2 for me, Andrew Sanchez. What do you think happens in this fight?
Head kick KOs can't make somebody, you can't characterize somebody as chinny from those. That's where I agree with you and disagree with the crowd. Because if anyone gets hit with them, even granite chin guys, it's a head kick. I got Sanchez decision because I do give James a little bit more credit. He is kind of a tough guy, but he can take a shit ton of damage. Yeah, nothing too crazy. Sanchez decision. But I've made money on James in the past. I've picked him as an underdog a few times. And then it stopped working.
I think I've stayed away from him specifically due to his age as well.
I'm going to call this already. I can already picture it. It's going to be called Lesbo and The Bean, our garbage picks of UFC.
That's the title of it?
Our garbage picks with like a trash can on it. Maybe Oscar the Grouch.
I like it. At least we're not shying away and trying to feed you guys some bullshit.
No, don't take this one serious.
Yeah, exactly. Don't say your DraftKings cards were all fucked up because of us. Because they totally were.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to bring up DraftKings. I wasn't even going to try to
I don't think there's even lines on DK. Oh, shit. I haven't even looked because that's where I don't feel so... Exactly.
On 218?
On 218 and put it on. That's exactly how I feel about this. This is a shot in the dark. Moving on to the next fight, we're going back to the flyweights. Christiana Marks versus Montana De La Rosa. De La Rosa coming in at 7-4 versus Christiana Marks 8-8. These women have a little bit more depth in their careers already, with Marks coming in at 32 years old to the 22 young Arlington native. 5'4" for De La Rosa to 5'6" of Marks. De La Rosa has a much more ground advanced game. She has good takedowns. She's done some good wrestling. She's really, really young and growing incredibly fast, and definitely with the exposure that she's had on the show to the coaches. I do know that she's a name that has really stuck out in the Twitter MMA-verse kind of stuff. I got De La Rosa just because I've heard her name more. I can't tell you all of Marks' credentials, but a 50-50 fighter coming in wouldn't get picked up in any other division.
Really, if you look at them, this is what I'm going on based on it. If you just look at the numbers, it looks like, what's the other girl's name? Not De La Rosa. Marks. It looks like Marks has more experience. But when you actually look at the fights, the other girl has been in there with girls that are actually fighting in the UFC now, and those are her only 2 losses. So the experience as far as caliber of fighter go, I'm going to give it to De La Rosa, and I got her winning by a technical knockout in round 3.
Ooh, I like it.
And she's young, and she deserves to actually get talked about at 22 with her skill set that she has. She'll be going places. We'll be talking about her for years to come.
And she's going to make big leaps and bounds moving forward.
Yes,
a lot of these women are. So it's their starting points essentially for me. And moving on to the next fight, we're going to the main event. We have a bantamweight bout 135 pounds. Joe Soto versus Brett Johns. Both of these have had multiple fights. Soto being a longtime veteran with an 18-5 record to Brett Johns' perfect 14-0. The 25-year-old Brett Johns is also shorter by an inch at 5'7" and has a 5-inch reach advantage, 70 inches to Joe Soto's 65 inches in reach. So Brett Johns got some longer arms. Brett Johns has had definitely a good amount of hype on him, but Joe Soto is notoriously been a hype killer. Chris Beal was a guy that had a lot, definitely a lot of hype come in, and Soto had a couple losses to Tanaka and stuff, but he beat Chris Beal via submission. Beltran is not a good win at all via heel hook, which he specifically called out, but Haniaya was, even though Haniaya tends to gas a lot, and Soto really proved at this point in his career, being 30 years old, that his gas tank is in check. He knows he has really good fight IQ, and it's one of his biggest attributes in fights is he can land good strikes, and he knows how to wear guys out. And what I have really seen with Brett Johns, the hype train, is no gas tank. He has a very flashy style, throws a lot of kicks from both sides. Coming out of New Kingdom, I feel like he has a good kickboxing or some striking career prior to this, and the last fight that I saw him in, that he beat Albert Morales in a decision. He also beat a decision Kawa, and before that he was coming off of the Titan scene, but he's had a lot of hype on him because he's able to finish a lot of other people. I think now that he's also hit the UFC, you haven't seen the mass knockouts that he had because he lined up a bunch in the regional scenes, where Brett Johns is now going to decision, and I think Joe Soto is going to be my underdog. He is a slight underdog at plus 155. I think there's money to be had. Joe Soto knows how to beat these type of fighters, knows how to make fights dirty, grinding, and I think it's a 30-27. I think it's a pretty sound win for Joe Soto. What do you think goes on in this fight?
You know, I don't even know why I think this, but I just don't like Joe Soto's chin here in this fight. I think he's going to get hurt a few times. I do agree. I think the pikey is a weird gas tank going into round 3. But it's because he really gives everything in the first round, and then in the second round, I think he's flashy enough to gather the points. Where Joe Soto tends to fight is holding position until he gets submission. So usually when Joe Soto's in control inside the octagon, there's no points being gathered in that time. I got Johns going decision. I could see a knockout for Johns. I won't have I don't know how many cards I'm going to play. I'm not even going to say anything about it. I have John's decision going into this, but it's really more of a fade on Joe Soto.
Yeah, mine's more of a sports bet. I'm just saying the straight up money line is what I'm betting if there was to be one. I think this is one that you can just have that parlay with maybe a couple favorites that we do know a little bit more about. So yeah, that's the avenue I got in my head. Moving on to the next fight, we have another flyweight bout. At the 125 division, we have another pair of up-and-comers. I did hear about both of these ladies coming up as well. They were definitely in the top contenders of the season. And we had Diana Bennett versus Melina Fabiana. And 8-3 record. Bennett is coming off of 3 losses in a row in Invicta. And one was TKO versus Sousa. And then she had a split decision loss over Roxanne Modafferi and a split decision over Jodie Escobel, also a UFC veteran. So Fabiana's coming in with a 4-3 record coming out of Hungary. On the show, she might have not been on the show.
Meh.
Yeah. So she's coming out of Hungary, beating women with arm bars that have 0-0 records, beating Judith Reese. I'm definitely taking a pro sports tip right now and gonna go Bennett decision because that's what Tapology's telling me to do, and that's how I feel about this.
Oh my gosh, that's exactly how I played. I was like, I'm just whatever the Bean picks on this fight, that's what I pick. That was mine. Okay, moving on.
Moving on to the next fight, we go into middleweight 185. Eric Spicely versus Jared Mershart. This is a short notice bout. They both had, I think they had about a month and a half to know about it, but they officially let it out to the public like 2 days ago. But both of these fighters do have a few fights in the UFC. Mershart coming in with a 26-9 record to Eric Spicely's 10-2 record. Even though I can see 3 losses on his record, I'm assuming the UFC is, and UFC notoriously will add or take away fights off of the show because they choose to call them as exhibitions or not. So there's people that lost 3 in a row on the show that never shows up on their record, and also to the benefit as well, they'll add 3 extra knockouts to that specific exhibition bout. So Eric Spicely is a culprit of that. Eric Spicely has had a couple notorious wins over Thiago Santos in a submission where he was a humongous underdog a year ago. He also beat Alessio Di Chirichio in a submission, which that's a good up-and-comer Italian fighter. And then his last loss to Junior Carlos Cara de Zapato ended up being a submission.
Shoe face.
Ended up losing a submission bout with a true black belt jiu-jitsu artist. Somebody that Mershart's not going to mimic that. On the ground, Spicely doesn't have to worry about that game that comes. And Spicely striking is very rudimentary. He definitely likes to get things to the ground and pound and be a grinding, tough, onset type of a guy. Wilts people more than anything, but the Thiago Santos fight was so unbelievable. And I think that is credit to Spicely that it wasn't a fluke. People were saying it's a fluke, but he's strong. And Alessio as well is a good win. That it didn't come out of nowhere. Spicely was getting beat up in that fight and I believe caught like a triangle off of his back, but he still caught it. It still happened. It still won. So Mershart's coming off of a loss to Thiago Santos in a TKO ground and pound 4 months ago, so that's pretty short return. But he also has finishes over a submission over Gulati and Ryan James earlier via armbar. And coming off of the RFA scene, he's got a mixture of knockouts and submissions. Mershart is the younger fighter, 29 to the 31-year-old Spicely. Spicely is the taller fighter at 6'2", and the reach advantage goes to Mershart, 77.5 inches to 63 inches for Spicely. The moderate favorite's Mershart because he has jiu-jitsu credentials as well, and I think people are really believing in that much more than they should be because Spicely is proven on the ground. And I really do think that he has had gas tank issues. I'm going to stay away from this fight, but if I have a gun to my head, I got Mershart decision. This is short notice. This is a really gross fight amongst this beautiful bouquet of fights that we have. So I'm just going to say Mershart. I don't think that line's right, though. Plus 200 is too much money. This is like a plus 140 Mershart. This is not 200. There's no value, no bet here. If anything, Spicely, maybe his submission in there, I think his American ground game is going to be a little bit more trying than Mershart has felt before. How do you feel this goes?
Spicely has no chin. Mearshart doesn't have a super huge punch, but I think he can wobble him enough to submit him. I think the reason that Mearshart lost his last fight, and I could be totally wrong, but I feel like he had the submission and then it got reversed somehow, and then just got beat. I don't see Spicely doing that to him. It's not because I want to get on the hype train of Mearshart, because I do see that happening, starting to build. But I do see Spicely's gas tank being enough of an issue that Mearshart can submit him in round 3.
Moving on to the next fight. We have Lauren Murphy, 125.
Do we? Nope.
Barb Harchank. Harchank I have heard of coming out of the Invicta scene. She was also in the house. She's a 38-year-old fighter coming in against the 34-year-old Lauren Murphy. Lauren Murphy having a 9-3 record, being the long-standing UFC veteran now. Harchank has been out of fighting professionally for 3 years, so she came into the show and really didn't do much. Harchank is hard-nosed grinder. I believe she has good kicks and strikes and can gas, because it's that very, when you throw your legs above your head a lot during a fight, regardless of who you are, you get tired, and that can be a fault for her. She has, in 3 years, getting this infusion of the house definitely helps her a lot. She's the shorter fighter, 5'4", to Murphy's 5'8", and she also has a 2-inch reach disadvantage at 66 inches to the MMA Labs Lauren Murphy at 68 inches. Michigan Fight Team, or Mitchell Fight Team Systems, Harchank's coming out of, but for me, it's easy just because I know so much more about Lauren Murphy. We have the older fighter, and at 38, regardless of any division, anywhere in the UFC, that's an older person in the fight game. Lauren Murphy is a bit older, has had a long career, but she's the epitome of a hard-nosed grinder as well. She has some decisions that I think could have been split either way. She has a couple finishes just because she ends up putting the pace on people. She walks into punches and kicks and really prides herself on having a good chin. And I feel like the most I know about Lauren Murphy is that she talks a lot of shit on Twitter and she's always in feuds, but for some reason people don't care about her and they don't really just pay attention to her tweets like they do most other people. But then again, she's not getting called out in any fights because she makes it a grinding affair anytime she's in the ring. I think this is just a role for Murphy, and I got her decision. I could see her putting on a parlay as well. I think she is a slight underdog, actually. Interesting. So a lot of people are really liking Burchank via Topology. How do you feel this one goes down?
I actually am just going to go experience, and that to me is UFC experience. So I'm going to give that to Lauren Murphy all day. She's been in the ring with some of my favorite 135 pounders, and I agree with you. She had some weird splits. I think going down to this weight class, we're really going to get to see how much that training and that 10-pound advantage is on wrestling and wear and tear. I think the lights of the octagon, Murphy all day. It's an easy decision for me.
I would think so too, but Tap seems to think the other way, so maybe the betting lines say it otherwise. But moving on to the next fight, we have the co-main event. Sean O'Malley, The Sugar Show, versus Terry and Tupperware. Actually, I think it's Flash Tupperware, but I think it should be Tupper. Sorry, Ware. So, one of the highest prospects on the show, Snoop Dogg, christened Sugar Shane O'Malley, is been a hype train through all of his fights because of his look. He's a skinny kid that you would see inner tubing off of some river somewhere, and he would tune up some other kid that's way bigger than him because he is a scrappy young man. Loves to smoke weed, so you know he's got them good cells in his body, and all the way around is vicious. Got a good ground game, has a good pace on him, gets tired, but still throws with reckless abandonment, but it's not that reckless. He's fairly technical as well. And the fact that he's 23 years old to the 31-year-old Ware, Shane O'Malley coming in with an 8-0 record is a big favorite, but it's been proven with the fights that we have seen prior to even the show. Terrion Ware came in and lost against Cody Stamann in a decision, which Stamann isn't as easy of a fight as most people think. The grind really ended up getting to Ware, but Ware is a striker primarily, fairly elusive at 5'8". He's going to be dwarfed by the 5'11 Shane O'Malley at 135 pounds. 5'11. That's ridiculous. That's unbelievably tall.
They looked crazy at weigh-ins, too.
Unbelievably tall. We have O'Malley coming out of the MMA lab, who's gathering a name in the UFC community, against Ware's System Training Center out of Los Angeles, California. Ware does have the reach advantage with 31 inches to the 72 O'Malley, so that's really interesting. O'Malley looks so much bigger. I would have thought the reach would have went his way as well, so Ware's got some good arms on him. Again, Ware tends to be the striker. He got worn out by Stamann because it was a very wrestling-centric approach, and O'Malley doesn't have that style. He can wrestle, and he can get into really good scrambles, even in his other scenes prior to the UFC. I do remember watching a couple of his fights, and they've been highlighted since because the money train is behind this kid. They realize that he has a fighting style of a Justin Gaethje-esque, where he's just like, I'm going to make it exciting. I could just beat these guys all submission-wise. I got good at that years ago. I want to strike because that's funner, but that makes him dangerous as well on the ground. So that's why he's such a fun prospect. I got O'Malley TKO round 2 just because I'm giving Ware a little bit more respect. He does have a loss. Is a 17-5 fighter, 31 years old. he's not going to be a walkthrough. I think the plus 260 minus 260 favorite for O'Malley is a little over the top. There might be a little bit of money on Ware right now that he could turn this. Ooh, I got O'Malley TKO round 2. Yeah,
I got O'Malley TKO round 1. I just think the height alone, I know he doesn't have the distance on his arms in the same way, but when you are reaching down at somebody, that's significantly more power than when you're punching up at somebody. I just think all the way around, I like the kid. I like where he's headed. As long as we don't see problems with weight cuts, because he is so tall for the division. I got TKO round 1. I have to tell you some breaking news right now.
Breaking news.
Sorry to jump right off that. Are we done with that card?
No, we got the main event. That has been a shit show.
Should I give you the breaking news before or after the main event? Should I make the audience hold on until after we just...
You gotta hit me with it right now. It's breaking.
Stevens versus Choi, UFC Fight Night St. Louis.
Ooh, that could be very violent.
Do we just go ahead and cut the checks now for Fight of the Night?
Yeah, pretty much. That is true. Is that the headliner or just a part?
I think that's the headliner.
That sounds like a good... That sounds fun.
Night.
That sounds fun. I like me some little Astro
as
Boy.
of 16 minutes ago.
Moving on to the main event, we have the vacant flyweight championship. This is for all of the marbles. We got a 5-rounder ahead of us with debuting UFC fighter, winner of her bracket through the entire show this season that has had very low ratings, against Roxanne Modafferi, who actually lost her main event match, breaking earlier today. Her opponent, who ended up beating Roxanne Modafferi in a decision last night, ended up having to fall out of the fight due to illness. More than likely the weight cut ended up getting to her or something happened, but either way, Roxanne Modafferi stepped in, so the big eventful night that they planned throughout the entire show just got put up, and Roxanne, being the loser, is actually a heavily decided favorite over the debuting Montano, and that's because these styles contrast. The gas tank, the lights, the show. The 3-2 fighter, 28-year-old Montano, is out of Colorado. She's 5'5". Hey, she might have a little bit better of a gas tank training up at that altitude. To the 5'6", 35-year-old Roxanne Modafferi. Roxanne Modafferi is 21-13 in her career, a long martial arts career she's had now. She's a lifelong martial artist. She does not look it, and that's one of her best attributes, is that you would never guess that she was a fighter. She already has UFC bouts. She's already been cut from the UFC at the 115-pound division, went over to Invicta, won championships there. She's able to beat women with fight IQ, durability, and tenacity. She puts it on women. She takes a beating in most of her fights and keeps coming forward, and eventually the women against her are young enough, and the sport is still at such a young stage in these divisions all across the board, all of the promotions, that Modafferi I feel like she can, the further this fight goes into a 5-rounder, Roxanne Modafferi takes more and more over on the ground. Her striking so rudimentary that her jabs, she beats you by 1,000 cuts. It's not any one punch that ever finishes you when she gets TKOs. It's more that she walks forward and just keeps pattering you, and you fall against the cage because you're so gassed, because you just unleashed the kitchen sink on her, and she's still standing, and all of a sudden she's coming forward. And a lot of women have broken there, and I think that's tried and true Roxanne. I have the new flyweight champion. The bait for Shevchenko is going to be Roxanne Modafferi. TKO round 4, maybe round 5, just because, as we were saying earlier, experience. Roxanne has it. This newcomer will gain it. She's going to be around for a long time. All of these women, nobody loses a contract here. None of these women lose a contract. Maybe Lauren Murphy. But nobody else loses a contract here. How do you feel about this fight?
I got Modafferi KO round 2. She is, I would give her the name Roxanne the Nerd Modafferi. No one's nerdier, and I mean that in all the cool, geeky Star Wars, Star Trek. Did you see her at weigh-ins give up the...
I love it.
Did you see her at the official weigh-ins with the Princess Leia bra
yes,
on?
I love it. I loved it.
Nerd.
Yeah.
And really... she might be the best thing of this whole card. I wasn't even going to tune in until the official weigh-in banner came across my phone. Wasn't watching anything else. pressed it. It came on. Watched them all. Was kind of like, yeah, I'll just save up until Saturday night. She came across. I'm like, well, she's hella interesting. So good for her. I'm all about people being original. So I hope she has an early knockout, and I hope they don't. I mean, there's no other option. She's going to get fed to Shevchenko or Joanna Jędrzejczyk. There's no other options.
Exactly.
Poor girl. And I even think Joanna, an interesting thing, if you hear when she speaks, she says, I will be fighting for a belt. My next fight will be for a belt.
Yep.
People just assume it's the 115.
Right.
So, anyway, yeah, that's that fight card. I hope it's good. I hope I eat my words.
Me too. I really do. But hey, we've been hitting it hard for how many weeks straight, and now I'm complaining, and I'm the one who's always complaining there ain't enough goddamn fight cards. Well, you're hearing it here first.
Well, this would be better served in one of them where we go 3 weeks or a month without fights.
100%.
Instead of right up against an enormous, amazing card.
100% correct. Because this also puts you in jeopardy for having 2 nights off with the lady. 2 middle of the days if you're in Poland, 2 mornings if you're in New Zealand, that you have to make excuses of, I can't hang out Friday or Saturday, and UFC, you got to work with us. Come on.
Yeah,
I work for a
don't
living.
think you have to worry about that. You just say, I can't hang out Saturday unless you want to watch fights. And by watching fights, I don't mean ask me a question about everything or not watch the fight. Just saying.
That sounded very violent and intimidating.
Just saying. Yeah.
Anything else you got? Do we need to break down anything else? Any late breaking news since we've had such a hectic week going into this 218 epic event?
If you listen to the last one, I'm sticking with all my picks.
Me too.
With everything, but I did want to
Baby
say...
Pettis.
I actually did want to... The one thing I wanted to say was I have a mix with Pettis and Cejudo, and actually I think Pettis is a good person to put on your cards to fill it in with a whole bunch of other great fighters because he's so cheap. Every time I fill in my DraftKings, I keep looking back, and when it comes down to the fighters that I can put in for the money I have left, he's the best option.
I could see that. I do like Kimball as well, though. I think Kimball's
I like
sneaky.
Kimball, too.
Think
I have him, too. But sometimes I need them both.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you got a little extra tidbit by staying on those last 5 minutes.
So I know you wanted to say something about Ngannou.
Oh, shit. I did want to get to it.
I know you want to say something about my boy Ngannou.
Hashtag Hog Watcher in full effect. Yes. I've been hearing some shit all around that Ngannou's a motherfucking asshole.
What?
Glenn Close and motherfucking himself.
Who's Glenn Close?
The Rock Close himself was like, I try to meet that guy. That guy's a dick. And other people have been saying, that guy's a dick. Because Ngannou, they're saying that Ngannou's starting to believe his own hype. Because so many people have just been oogling on him for a amount of time. And now that it's fight week, he's hyper aware. But he's believing all of the hype. It makes me feel so much better about Alistair Overeem. Overlook Alistair Overeem, please. I got too much money on Alistair Overeem parlayed up with some other peeps in there.
This is what I think about fight week. I have not done the sport, but I would imagine that I would have to be on a different headspace that week, especially with the fans around and the press, and knowing that I'm going to friggin' go in against one of the baddest men on the whole planet. I have to think I'm the baddest man or woman on the whole planet during that week. I have to think it. I have to know it, or that puts me at a bigger danger going in there. So the fact that he's thinking it this week, just because I heard things before from other people being like, oh, that guy is such a sweet guy. His hands are fucking enormous. Like when he shakes your hand, you feel like you have a tiny little hand inside Andre the Giant.
Right.
So.
And I'm sure he's getting a new star fame where he's just like, I can't meet everybody, fighter and person alike. Because everybody wants to be like, let me shake your hand. Everybody.
Maybe he doesn't want to shake anyone's hands. A lot of people, I think the world should do away with shaking of hands. I think it spreads common cold, influenza.
Elbow City.
Or a little fist bump.
Yep.
I don't think we need sweaty clams on sweaty clams. Keep your hands to yourself. Maybe just give them like a fist bump or being like, Ngannou, bow up. Like, yeah, why can't we start tapping bows?
What's up? Give a little bow.
Tap bow.
Get a little
if you ever
drop
see
bows on
Lesbo in person and you're a big fan, give me a fist bump or tap a bow. Please do not shake my hand.
Or a hug.
Oh, yeah, I don't want to be grubbed up on. I'm not a hugger.
Me neither.
Just so you guys know ahead of time. See, we're already planning that. And then you're going to see me. I'm going to be walking around like I'm Francis
Right.
Ngannou.
Well,
Like,
I ain't gonna get no
what?
security. Well, maybe. I don't know. I don't want to jump any
This
guns.
is the
I
other
don't
thing
wanna
that's
jump
driving me
any damn
crazy
guns.
about Ngannou.
Do it.
Could you guys do a little fucking research when we get to this level of it on a card that's this big? Can you learn how to say this motherfucker's name?
What is it? Come on. I know we research.
It's
you
Ngannou.
research-
I've
right.
heard Gano, and then, who was it?
Bishop, I think you were saying earlier.
Brendan Schaub said Gano forever. And then, but the worst, Luke Thomas says Ngannou.
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 I feel like I have heard that.
Where I'm like, at first I thought he was talking about two different things, or like a different person was doing something because of how separate the name sounded. And then it sounded like other guys were trying to correct him in the conversation, and then slowly he adjusted a little bit. And I know the names are hard. I butcher my own, but I just feel like this guy's by the time they get to this level, you learn how to say Shevchenko, Jędrzejczyk. It's like once they have this many fights, you learn how to say friggin' Olenek.
Right.
You know, it's their first fight. Hell no, I'm like Oleniechek.
It's true. And then they say it themselves at times. And then there's also UFC will ask them at times. I really love when the UFC gets some of those foreign fights and actually is like, how do you pronounce your name? And they blatantly ask because I want to know too. Because I don't want to be some jackass unless I'm openly making fun of your name like Manganya. I'm saying that shit on purpose.
But or if like Jędrzejczyk, she knew her name was crazy, and then she's like champion.
Call me champion.
Call me champion.
Now what does she call me? Now what do you call her?
I am still I am Boogie Woman.
I think violence was one of her other.
I am Boogie Woman. Be scared of the Boogie Woman. That's the craziest one.
That's the nuts voice.
That's exactly what she sounds like.
She likes Jamaican.
That is what she sounded like when she said it.
No way.
Yeah, I'm going to pull the clip. You can call me the Boogie Woman. That was my shoe.
Oh, I bet. A little nervous talking about the violence.
Talking about the violence making me a little gassy. I don't know if you could hear that on air.
You got anything else for me? And or us here listening at the cast. If you haven't subscribed.
I will say, so excited about Alvarez Gaethje.
Yes, I agree 100%.
Most excited about that fight.
They actually should have made Gaethje not a part of that undercard for the pay-per-view, but the main event for this Friday night, and I would have been interested.
I wish it was a 5-round.
If you made it a main event,
I totally agree.
If you made it a main event Friday night fight, but it's for the belt, so they would have to go above a belt, and that's why they couldn't do it. Because they crowned the flyweight champion. But they're crowning, so it was vacant, so they can't have the spot. I think that they
should have done this as a 5-round as a co-main anyway, because both fighters would have signed on for that.
Yeah, I agree.
You're right. For the last night, this Friday night's card, it would change everything.
Everything.
I would be hungry for the Friday night card. I know everything about
Agreed. 100% agree.
Why aren't we running the UFC?
Definitely remember to subscribe at Twitter and...
Oh, yeah, Twitter, Facebook,
YouTube,
Hulu, Netflix. Just kidding. But I'm just hoping for one day that I'm like, make sure you're following us on Netflix.
That contract in case you hear Netflix.
I'm manifesting verbally. Lesbo and The Bean. To find your feed, you can go to lesboandthebean.com. You can go to Libsyn, Libsyn, and search for Lesbo and The Bean.
Definitely thanks for the retweets.
Make sure you hit
there.
the bell. Please like and subscribe. Sorry to keep begging.
Right.
A little ball fondling.
We're just trying to loosen it up as it goes on. As you are clicking that subscribe button, we're just trying to gel that fingers so there's no contact.
Little oil it up.
Lesbo and The Bean!